Hey, what's happening, guys? Con back here again for my comic reviews of the week of March 21st, 2012. I've got 5 books to review here, but before I do that, I'd like to take this opportunity to give a couple of shout-outs. Once again to my good Yankee buddy, the Mount Vernon Kid, a.k.a. Chris. He hit 30 yesterday, so I'd like to wish him happy birthday, and I hope he had a hell of a blast on it. And also the second one to my buddy Vic, Ziploc Gory. He hit 26 today, so happy birthday to them both. Provide links for their channels. If you ain't watched them before, go and check them out. Pop on by, give them some good wishes, and all that good stuff. Now, let's get down into my comic reviews for this week of, well, I've already said it. I'm going to do things in order. Usually I start off with DC first, but I'm going to begin with Marvel for a change. And something that kind of had my brain a little bit addled before I start this is the way that I feel about a book which has been very hit or miss with me over the last couple of years. And this is going to hurt me to say, because this issue was really improved after a couple of drags with Greg Land's art, but Uncanny X-Men number 9. Now, let me go ahead and get the positives out of the way first. And what I'm going to say has not had any kind of reverberations throughout the comic book community this week, but it did have some very big resonations with me, and I'm going to explain why shortly. Alright, so basically this issue of Uncanny, which is drawn by Carlos Pacheco, the artwork is a much better improvement than what Greg Land was doing. And Kieran Gillen's writing actually steps up pretty good in this issue. Basic premise is we got an Avengers and Extinction team up to take down a bunch of aliens that have broken out of the Sword alien jail, which is orbiting Earth. I don't know what it's called because I don't keep up with a lot of the cosmic stuff. We have a lot of interesting stuff going on in this issue, which is that we get some more insight on exactly what is going on with Elanya Rasputin, and kind of a twisted thing that Cyclops has done to keep her in check. And at the same time, we get a little more into Colossus's dilemma about the problem that his sister is in right now. She's being kept in the X-Brig, watched over by Danger, and Danger kind of monitors her, and in some ways the robot does feel sorry. The issue's art is a much better improvement. The writing, which takes place in here, this is a fucking epic issue. The main villain that we have to worry about from the breakout is this cat named Unit. I'm not terribly familiar with him, but he looks like a robot mounted on top of the Silver Surfer's surfboard. And if I can dig him up real quick, he's in here. And this would be him right here. You can see him. Looks pretty cool. He meets with a father and son somewhere. That's going to be part of the dilemma I get into. But I will say, for the positives of this issue, it is well drawn. We got a lot of action taking place, and dealing with the Skrulls, Vodian, the Dire Wraiths. There's just a lot of epic fight scenes taking place in this issue that go on. And eventually even Generation Hope is brought out to deal with some problems of a new mutant, or so they thought. A lot of epic stuff going on in here, and hell, even the Avengers or the X-Men are taking on Fin Fang Foom, which is pretty fucking cool. Now, all of this is really good. It's a vast improvement over it. There is, however, one major problem that I have with this issue, and it's one that I find extremely offensive. Shock value offensive. I guess we're so used to shock value now that nobody cares, or maybe it's just affecting me and I'm overreacting to it. But Unit is the main alien bad guy that they're dealing with. And he has the ability to plug out hypnotic suggestions and basically tell people to do whatever the hell he wants them to do. So he tortures this father that he meets, and I'm going to go ahead and spoil the hell out of this issue for the problem that it presented. He made this man's kid turn around and just, pay attention and not look at him tear his father apart while he learns about humanity. And after he learns everything he thinks he needs to know, he decides that the kid should be, he's good for nothing else except dying. And this is what he chooses to do to him. Now, it's not violent like tearing the Sentry in half in Siege was, but, yeah, he optic blasts this kid's head, and that's the result, and then burns the body. Now, I'm not really big on speaking out on this much. Now, yeah, the Sentry thing that happened a couple of years ago, it was big, but then I'm kind of used to that stuff. What I'm not used to seeing, however, is violence on children, which I know happens in entertainment sometimes, but they don't show it. But what happened in this issue ruined a lot of the improvement for me. And I'm really debating whether or not I want to continue with the series now just because of that. I do collect Uncanny, but what they depicted with that image, it just did not resonate with me well. And I am vastly disappointed that, hey, I like shock value as much as the next guy, but there are some things even I don't have a stomach for. I will give this improvement for the writing and the epicness and the art as well, but single-handedly, Kieran Gillen, you just absolutely ruined that issue for me. Like, I like what I saw in there, but I'm just vastly disappointed that you chose to do something like that, and I really question whether or not I want to continue with that series now because of that. But it's over, it's done with now. I'll worry about that problem later. Let's get back to more positive stuff. Let's talk about something that does work well. Mr. Peter David on X Factor number 233. Now, we're back with Madrox returning from dimension hopping. And David does well with this. Now, it's not fun to spoil Peter David's stuff, so I'm not really going to divulge too much what happens in here. It's impromptu type stuff, and it works well, and it doesn't really help with me saying what happens in here. What I can tell you is that Layla and Madrox had a lot of feelings that they shared for each other quite well, and giggity, got a little action on upon his return. And at the same time that's going on, we're kind of looking at the team now that Havoc and Polaris are back into the picture. These are two characters that I haven't seen for a while. I did not follow them when they were doing all that War Kings and Realm of Kings stuff in outer space, but it's nice to have them back. And there's a lot of hilarity that takes place in here. We also have kind of a hostage situation which is taking place that involves a bunch of mutant haters, and the way that it's handled and kind of gets out of hand, Peter David does extremely well with this stuff. And what's one of the best things about X Factor that I don't talk about that much, which I think needs to be addressed? We all know how Marvel has the recaps. David likes to make his a little bit more unique than a lot of the other ones. He does a paragraph of recap on what's happened, but let me tell you something. I'm not going to spoil the recap in here because what he does on the underside of explaining the issue is what's going on with him. And David makes a very profound statement, which is hilarious, but at the same time is absolutely resonant. I'm not going to say what it is, but if you read this issue, it's a very valid point that he makes about old school entertainment and how it's kind of scary for us that knew a lot of stuff and a lot of kids now do not know that old stuff. It's a very profound point, and please pay particular attention to that before you read the issue. It's a very good point that he raises up. X-Factor is still satisfactory to me. Now, let's swap it on over to the Invincible Iron Man with issue number 514. Now, with the last issue, we kind of had a big reveal set up. It was kind of predictable because we knew it was coming, but just the image of all of Tony's past rogues getting revamped some upgrades by Mandarin and Ezekiel Stain was a really good shot. And as with the tradition of the last couple of issues, which is that we get a look into some of the mentality of the rogues which are forced to work for the Mandarin, we get to look into the mind of the Melter this time. And what they do with him is a very good upgrade to me, but also in the fact that the Melter makes one very good point to the Mandarin and Zeke in this issue, which is that while he's not the biggest foe that Iron Man has, he's also one of the most troublesome, because Iron Man never actually laid a finger on him, and which, thinking back, that is true. Meanwhile, Tony is kind of in a problem too, because with last issue, with the government basically stepping in and say, hey, we want to see you now, or we're going to arrest your ass. Justine Hammer and Mr. General Babbage are the ones to deliver a bit of a cuckold to Mr. Stark and his armor. Now, there is some funny stuff that takes place where Stark kind of smartasses them about the hearing that he must attend and the evidence which he is supposed to present to him. There is some funny stuff going on in here, and we do seem to remember the mole, which has been ignored for the last couple of issues, but now we're starting to get we're getting hints thrown out there at who it might be, but it's nothing that direly gives it away and makes it predictable. So there is still a chance of being genuinely surprised by who this winds up being. Overall, the issue is good. It does hit kind of a lull a little bit. It's slower paced than what the last couple of issues have been, but it's still good. If there's one thing Fraction is doing right, he is doing the Iron Man right. So, good stuff. Now, let's move on over to DC and take a little more twisted turns with the Court of Owls in Batman number 7. Alright, so to speak, the reach of the talons of the Owls are starting to reach out to Batman and Gotham. And after barely surviving his ordeal with the crazy maze that he was in, each issue of Batman has dealt out some crazy stuff. And if you thought issue 5 was crazy with all the twists and turns it was going through, this one gets a little bit deeper. And it's creepy, in fact. The thing I love about reading Batman sometimes is that there are points where we explain how villains operate. And some pseudoscience sometimes is bullshit and sometimes can be bought. But in this case, they really do sell something in here about how the Talons work. Bruce Wayne did an autopsy on this guy, and I'm not going to spoil how he works, but basically the explanation that Snyder come up with for how this worked is really crazy. And it kind of explains how we saw all of the Talons rising up from the caskets in the last issue as well. These guys are reaching deep, man. We sit there and we joke about, how deep something actually goes, but he's doing really good with this. And that's not the only twist that we have in this issue. There is a connection that we discover that Dick Grayson actually has to the Talon as well. And if you thought the twist of what they do with how they made the Talon, or how they kept the Talon under his control was bad, you ain't seen nothing yet until you see the twist that Bruce discovers with it. Snyder continues to do excellent work with this series. I'm actually getting hyped up, looking forward to this crossover, because they seem to be planning out some really good stuff, and I'd really like to see how this pays off. The artwork continues to be pretty good as well. Mr. Greg Capullo doing pretty good. And this is like deep stuff. I mean, like, I've read a lot of Batman issues, and you thought his Snyder's run on Detective Comics was good. This one is going to twist your head a little bit more, so I'm satisfied with this one. Now, let's talk about something which has improved as well since this last issue. Justice League number 7, the final issue which I'm going to review. And I will say that Mr. Johns does much better in this one, starting off a new story than he did with the conclusion to the last one. The defeat of Darkseid, which he pulled out of his ass. We also get treated to art by a Mr. Gene Ha. It's kind of reminiscent of Jim Lee's a little bit, but he likes to bring his own flavor to it. Unfortunately, while some of it is good, I got to critique it a little bit, that it looks good in some poses and then looks a little cartoony in others. So the start of this issue takes place, 5 years after the Justice League formed up battling Darkseid. And they still kind of act like they just got together. But I will say that the action is pretty good in this issue. The character stuff we may get to flesh out a little bit more as this particular story arc goes on. There is some funny dialogue with Green Lantern and Flash now teasing Batman a little bit just to piss him off. And we have these strange little creatures which are running around terrorizing people that the Justice League steps in and must stop before they completely get out of control. And all the while that's going on, we get a little more of a window on Steve Trevor and his past interest with Wonder Woman, in fact. And while all that's going on at the same time, he has to answer a congressional summons to explain why the Justice League has a watchtower and a lot of these questions which are brought up. This issue, or this series, I haven't read any of the other Justice League series. There are some jabs that they take at other ones like Justice League International. But there's some good stuff going on in here, but Johns is kind of having a hard time, to me, finding consistency on a lot of stuff with the other characters. They're not reflecting well the solo titles that they have, and I hope that this is something that can get fleshed out a little bit better during the course of the story arc. But the issue is an overall improvement from last, and it's good setup material despite the inconsistency that's going on in it. And as well, the first part of the introduction of Captain Marvel into the New 52 was pretty good. They have a really good twist with Billy Batson on this one, and they do some really nice fan service for fans of Captain Marvel in this as well. Plus, which I got to say, there's a really good redesign, which I'm going to go ahead and show off right now, of what Captain Marvel will look like. And I'm actually kind of digging the hood look that they have turned his cape into. Let's see, Gary Frank was doing the art. Now, while Haas is okay on the main story of Justice League itself, I kind of would have liked to have seen Frank's over there, because the art actually in the backup feature is much better than the main story in this, and I don't know, for some reason that shouldn't be. The art should be better in the main story than it is in the backup feature, but small complaint. And overall, that's pretty much it for my comic reviews for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and please leave any feedback, and if you have any suggestions for something I should cover in the future, drop me a line and I'll catch up with you guys later. So until then, have a good one, and Carpe Diem.